Hello and welcome to AFU United WFC.
Good evening and welcome to AFU United, the WFC Show with me, Matt Crane. I've got two guests joining me tonight. As always, although I say as always, it's been a while, John. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, all good, pal. And Hannah as well. You play for Fylde Women. Welcome to the show.
Great, thanks for having me.
So tonight's show then, I'm going to be chatting with Hannah. I'm going to be chatting all about her football career. You've played abroad as well in Germany, so we'll talk about that and the experience. Keen to talk about Fylde season as well, and obviously Tier 3, because I think this year it's very, very competitive. We've just been sort of talking beforehand, and there's a lot of teams up there fighting for promotion. So we'll talk about that. See how we go. John mentioned to me about a potential combined league as maybe an idea, so we'll touch on that and have a nice little discussion. So I'll start obviously then, Hannah, with just sort of how you got into football really from sort of a young age. Like what made you start sort of playing football?
Yeah, I think it was mainly my dad. So sort of since I was a little girl, he had me in Manchester United football kits as I was a baby, just playing football in the garden, and obviously I enjoyed it, and I was, he sort of saw that I was pretty good at it as well. So he really supported me. Taking me to football week in, week out, and it's all down to him really. That's how I sort of got into it. Taking me to go and watch United as well. Ever since I was little, so I kind of had no choice really. It was I was always going to be into football, I think.
Yeah. So did you play them for sort of a local side when you were younger? Because I'm assuming back in, like when you started, there wouldn't have been too many girls teams around compared to sort of now.
No, so we're talking like 20 years ago now, so I'm getting a bit older. But yeah, no, obviously I live in Chester, so there wasn't many girls around who's played football. I was like the only one at school really who did. So when I was young, my dad took me, I joined the local boys team. I played with the boys sort of throughout up until I was 12 years old. And obviously once you hit that point, you have to go and play with the girls team, which I was pretty upset about. I didn't want to go and play with the girls because I love playing with the boys so much. I went from like Vickers Cross boys to Vickers Cross girls and played there for a little bit. And then I had the opportunity to move to Tranmere Rovers. So that was kind of where it really began. I got into the Centre of Excellence there and joined their team. So that's sort of where it all kind of began.
Just wondering, so just like in regards to location, for anyone who's watching this who doesn't know Greater Manchester area, you mentioned Chester, obviously Man United fan, Tranmere, you're never Fylde. Just roughly, like geographically, whereabouts are all those towns and cities? Yeah,
so obviously I'm based in Chester. It's not so far from Liverpool, so if people don't really know, in Manchester. Travel up to Fylde, which is up towards kind of the Blackpool coast, so it's quite a bit of travelling that we have to do. But luckily, one of the girls in our team, she's also living in Chester, so we kind of do a little bit of car sharing, which is good. So but we're talking like just over an hour and a half just to get to training sometimes. So it's quite a big commitment, but we do a little bit of travelling.
just on that hour and a half just to travelling. I mean, I was chatting to one of our presenters on here, Connor. He's chatted to one of the West Bromwich Albion players, and she lives all the way, I think it's like towards like Swindon way or Reading, so she has to travel an hour and a half and 2 hours as well, and it's a big commitment, isn't it, to say that, like, it's not like it's a WSL team or it's a massive commitment there to do that.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of girls in the league obviously who travel all around, and I think in terms of women's football it's kind of hard to find, say, a team in your area who are they're either at the level that you want to play at, because obviously around the northwest you've got your Liverpools, Evertons, City, United, they're all up in that top tier. So quite a few of us do have to travel to kind of play at the level that we want to. But all very committed.
I was wondering, you mentioned like being like a United fan, and you spoke about like Chester and Tranmere. Did you ever consider going towards like the more Liverpool side of the northwest at all?
No, never went that side. I couldn't quite do that, but I did end up playing for City for a little bit. So
we'll get into that.
We'll get into that in a bit. But I couldn't couldn't do that. Couldn't put on a Liverpool shirt, I don't think.
Yeah,
even though my mum's a Liverpool fan, to be fair. So,
John, look what you've done now. Getting these naughty words in there now. I just wanted to sort of talk about the commitment to it then, Hannah, because you were talking about the travel, and I think, you know, I mean, my local team, obviously, I do things with FC United, and there's some players there that are traveling from Yorkshire, and I admire the commitment, because I think, you know, obviously it's easy for people to judge it when they don't know, and a lot of people don't realize that WSL, obviously, as well as getting paid, you know, they're probably getting a lot of expenses, and sort of outside the championship it's not always the case. But I suppose how do you find juggling everything, because obviously you're saying there you got an hour and a half journey, obviously working and things like that as well. How does that all sort of fit in then, sort of day-to-day life?
Yeah, obviously it's quite busy. So work Monday to Friday. I'm quite lucky, obviously. I finish at say 5 o'clock, so I can finish work and, you know, travel straight to football. It's not too much of an issue, but yeah, it is, like you say, it's a lot of juggling. So that's like 2 nights a week that you're not home until gone 10:30 some evenings. So can be quite tiring, but it's not too bad. It's something we're used to. Like, I've been doing it for many years now. So yeah.
It is interesting, Matt, that you brought that up, and this is something that we've learned, you know, doing these shows and chatting to players like Hannah. We learn a little bit about their training schedules, and the majority is like a Tuesday and a Thursday. How about if ever you made that like step up and like you have to start training 3 or 4 days a week? Would that kind of be like not like a step too far? Because I'm sure you'd love to have that step up, but when does it become like too much? Because, you know, you might maybe one division, 1 tier away from doing that.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's tough when you've got to travel, obviously, because I mean, we'll get onto it later. When I was in Germany, we trained 3 times a week. But obviously my apartment was like 10 minutes from training, so it wasn't an issue. But obviously when you say you're doing that 3 nights a week, having to travel, it does get tougher. But, you know, if you do want to step up, I think it's kind of the sacrifice people are willing to make. But yeah, it does get quite difficult then to try and balance everything, like you say, your work, your football, and then your social life as well. But yeah, like I say, I think if people do want to step up, that's kind of part and parcel of it, that you do have to train that extra night probably.
Yeah. I just want to go back then. Obviously, you mentioned sort of starting out at Tranmere then. I just want to sort of go back to that and pick up from there, really. So obviously starting, you were saying at Tranmere then, what was that like there? Because it's kind of like, I don't know, how would you describe it? Starting there, it's not your typical, like, if you're looking at the men's side, it's sort of lower leagues in League 2, isn't it? So what was that like in terms of like training, facilities, things like that, compared to maybe later on in your career?
Yeah, because I mean, obviously it was many years ago, because I was only, I think it's about 12 when I joined. So yeah, just training on, you know, the sort of local pitches. I think at one point we were on, like, you know, the proper old sandy AstroTurf.
Yeah.
I bet kids don't see that anymore, do they?
No, it's
but yeah,
all
we were
pellets.
exactly. So yeah, we trained on that, and obviously at the time, like, I loved it because I didn't know anything sort of different. Because when I was training with like the boys team, it was on, you know, just like local parks and, you know, in like a sports hall. So to me, it was great. And obviously, like, back then, Tranmere they had a good women's setup. There's quite a few women, you know, who went on to play for England, who played at Tranmere back in the day. So obviously, sort of since then, they've gone down the leagues a little bit from when I first started. But at the time, it was like obviously great. And with them having the centre of excellence status as well. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Obviously, it was a great start to me playing, really.
I'm always intrigued about how easy it is to go from like a school kind of level to like a club. So was there like many schools in your area? So would there be much competition? And 2, would Tranmere kind of be that step up, or would there have been other clubs potentially around that would kind of sweep up that kind of talent at that age as well?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. Obviously, back then, I'm guessing sort of Liverpool did have their academy, and obviously Manchester United always had a very good girls' centre of excellence as well. But I'd say sort of within my area, it was Tranmere was one of the main ones. But yeah, in terms of school, like, I don't think in that area there were too many girls playing. Like, we struggled to get 5-side teams together to play in school tournaments and stuff like that. So I think there's a massive change now. I think there's just way more girls starting to play football, and it's a lot more normal now, I'd say, which is great. But yeah, back then there probably wasn't that many, you know, in that area, and like lots of girls who were there sort of were kind of from the Wirral area. That's where sort of like loads of the girls came from. And they're the kind of friends I made. There weren't too many from Chester.
Matt mentioned FC United, so that means I'm allowed to mention Stourbridge. So just a little bit on that. You mentioned like hard to get 5-a-sides going, and not as many girls used to play football. But you look at like some of the clubs now. They have got like an under 12s team, under 13s, 14s, right the way up to under 16s, and the academies, depths, or whichever. Like we have come a very long way, haven't we? When we look at it in what I think is a short amount of time. I mean, is that what you think, like coming through it, Hannah, or do you kind of see it in a different way? I appreciate there's a lot more we can do, but in regards to like the amount of clubs out there that kids can play for now, seems to be there are quite a few more out there now.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, there's a lot more girls' teams as well, because obviously most of us back then, we had to join a boys' team, if we wanted to play at sort of a decent level, because maybe there wasn't enough girls who sort of played at that standard, for us to sort of join in. But now it just there seems to be way more girls sort of joining in, even at school level, you see it, and we get loads of young teams who come and watch us now, which is great to see. I think it's just like way more accepted, isn't it? Because like when I was at school, it was like, I was the one who played football, no one else did. But I think now, like I say, it's just become a lot more normalised, hasn't it, for girls to play football? But yeah, it's fantastic to see.
Yeah, I want to sort of go into that a little bit, because it's just sort of what you said there about, sort of girls' teams coming watching. And it was something, I was at the FC game Sunday, and they had a local side and they came as mascots. And I think this is something that I like, clubs can turn up and, there's the opportunity to be mascots or, ball kids, things like that. But it must be nice for you now having these teams watching, because, these kids now have got role models to look up to. The amount of, I work in a school, and the amount of girls we have talking now about these women's footballers is brilliant, because I think 5-10 years ago, nobody had somebody to look up to. And I think now, especially in the women's game, there's so many role models. It must be sort of pleasing for yourself as well, really, to sort of see that, and obviously to have, like you say, young people inspired by you.
Yeah, definitely. It's great. So like you said, they come and be little mascots and, ball girls as well. And yeah, it's just brilliant. And I think what's great is obviously we all sort of take the time after games, to talk to them. So I think obviously it's great because we're quite accessible as well. I think it's the same across most of women's football. That's been kind of one of the great things about it. But like I say, it's just great that they can go and watch a women's team, say, in their local area, and have people to look up to. Because kind of when I was younger, obviously being a Manchester United fan, there wasn't really a women's team as well, because I'd have gone and watched them as a child, but I didn't have that. So obviously I think it's great up and down, the different tiers, that there's plenty of women's football teams that the girls can go and watch and be inspired by. So it's fantastic.
Just a quick one, Matt. And sorry if you've got this as a question. I can't quite remember.
Now
you just mentioned role models there, Hannah, and you explained that obviously that there wasn't like a Man United kind of team back then. Was you looking at more to do with like men's games as like players to kind of look up to, or was there any moments where like women's games like on TV, whether it be like an FA Cup, or because when I cast my mind back when I was a little bit younger, it was mainly like just like cup finals that was on TV or that stuck in my head. What kind of things like kind of stick in your head like growing up?
Yeah, definitely. So it was mainly, like say, watching men's football. So I've had a season ticket at United since I was little, so it was always watching the men's players and always looked up to, the men's players. But like you say, there's things like the FA Cup, say, used to be on telly, or some England games. But it just wasn't, like you say, it wasn't very accessible, was it? And in terms of highlights in the leagues or anything like that. So there'd be times, say, when like my dad would take me to go and watch, say, Everton women when they played against Arsenal, say. So yeah, I remember going and watching games like that, and little things like we got to be ball girls at an England match once. Obviously, I think it was at Prenton Park as well. So I remember that being a great experience. Being able to meet some of the England players was like so amazing back then. So yeah, but like you say, it just wasn't really that accessible. So I'd say we were more looking up to some of the male players than it was women's. I think a kind of turning point was kind of more towards, say, the Olympics in 2012, when I think more of the girls started to become household names, and the WSL was starting to take off a little bit. But before that, I'd say most people didn't know many of the women's players, even at the top level. So it's been a massive shift, I'd say, in the last 10, 20 years, hasn't there?
100%, yeah. And just on that, do you want to kind of shout out maybe like a couple of players out there now who maybe kids of today can kind of look up to? I mean, for me, as a Man United fan, Katie Zellem being a captain of Man United, she gets like a lot of airtime. It speaks highly of like the foundation, the club's foundation. Then you've got Ella Toon, who, is a local girl, and obviously Matt knows Tooney from the past as well. And for me, that was the kind of names who are kind of like kids are looking up to now, especially Ella, how well she's doing with the Lionesses.
Yeah, definitely. Ella's done amazing. Because I played with her at Blackburn. But yeah, to see where she started and where she's at now is just incredible. And yeah, definitely I'd say she's one that lots of the girls will be looking up to. So no, it's just brilliant to see, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously after Tranmere then, Hannah, do you want to sort of go with your career after that then, and we'll sort of slowly get through the clubs to Fylde?
I know, yeah, there's been quite a few, hasn't there? So yeah, obviously I joined Tranmere, I think it's like under 12 level, and I stayed with them all the way up to the age groups and up until the first team, so around sort of 16, 17. So, I got to play with Tranmere's first team at quite a young age, playing women's football. So it was, a really, really good learning curve, to play open age football. And what was great is I got to play with some of my best friends as well, made some really good friends there. So yeah, stayed there for quite a long time. And then it kind of got to the point where I think I knew I could play at a higher level, and I kind of wanted to push myself a little bit, but obviously it was hard because I've been at Tranmere for so long, and obviously I was very loyal to them. Like, I love being there and the coaches, but I sort of had to make a decision. And kind of I'd inquired about Manchester City, because obviously their first team was playing in a higher division, and they had a reserve team. So yeah, I kind of had to make that decision on the motorway. My dad was like, do I take the turn in here, or are we going straight on to Manchester? And I sort of had to say, right, we'll go Manchester. So I joined them. That was kind of the pre-WSL days. So I went there and joined the reserve team, and it was probably one of the best decisions that I've made, I think, although it was really hard at the time. I was playing in the reserve team there for quite a while, and then obviously everything changed a little bit with the Super League. So we went from training at like Whalley Range, at the school pitches there, to moving over to the City Football Academy, which the facilities there were just absolutely fantastic, and things like having access to the physios that we never had before, and it was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I joined City, and I stayed with them up until I was 21. I got to captain the development squad, and unfortunately never got the chance to sort of go and play in the first team. But obviously they had Lucy Bronze playing in my position at the time, and Abby McManus. So it was kind of it was a very tough team to try and get into. So yeah, that's kind of when I then sort of left there to go and play in the third division. I went to Fylde for a little bit, sort of the first time round. It didn't quite work out at the start, so I sort of moved to Blackburn quite quickly, which was obviously like the local rival. And the first game for Blackburn was against Fylde. Bit of a nerve-wracking one for me. But we won that one, and we sort of went on to win the league. We went unbeaten that season. That was brilliant. That's when I played with Ella in that team, so it was a really, really strong Blackburn team. Won the league, but then obviously we went to the playoff final, but didn't quite make it there, which was quite disappointing when you've put in all that hard work, over the season, for them to go to one game between the North and South winners. So, yeah.
We'll come on to that properly, because that still doesn't sit well with me. But I'll let you come in, John, before I string the league here a little bit.
So obviously, we'll talk about that shortly, and I know that's one of our topics. I'm sure people watching this will like to know a little bit about when you played with Ella, but before we just mention that, you mentioned a little bit about before you went to City about like kind of knowing that like your level was maybe a little bit higher. What was you kind of basing that on? How do you kind of know at that age? Is it like to do with like how quickly you're learning, the strength, the tactics behind it, just out of their passion? What is it that kind of like made you kind of stand out from the rest of the players?
So when I started Champ, we had a great team, to be honest. We had some really good girls in there. But I'll say I played that season in open age, and we got relegated that season. But for me, I kind of knew I'd sort of taken to it quite comfortably at an early age. Like I was 16, 17, and I was playing at centre back, which like it's hard to believe now because I'm pretty small. Don't play there anymore, but I felt comfortable at that level. And I think I just always had that sort of, the commitment to want to play at a higher level. So, it's just one of those things that I sort of decided myself. It wasn't like, my parents or anything say anything. It was me. I just kind of wanted to push myself a little bit and, see what I could achieve, really.
Yeah, I know John's asking me to bring Toonie in, but I'm gonna hold it there for a second, John, because I know I was skipping too much and I don't want to go back. But I'm just sort of thinking. Obviously, you mentioned Fylde, you mentioned captain Man City development team. Then, so that must have been a proud moment at a young age to be able to do that, and obviously talk about the facilities as well. How did you find it then? Because there's for me between development football and first team football, there's quite a gap. I know conversations we've had, some sort of coaches and players have said, well, it would be great if we could have an under-18s sort of league. So it'd go like, under-18s, then development, and then first team, sort of similar to the men's. But how did you find that sort of in that environment and setup?
Yeah, so I think we've had some pretty good players that have gone through there, and there was kind of no age restriction, when I was kind of there at the time. So there were some girls who were slightly older. So I'd say, it was quite physical, girls who've obviously played at some point women's football as well, and then come from, say, playing in a women's team to join in City's development squad. So I think there's some quite well-experienced players in there. So I think taking the step from that into women's football wasn't too big of a jump. But I do think now, because when I left, I think they changed the age restrictions. Is it to 21, I think, is it, or something like that? And you can kind of see that obviously girls are getting released at a young age, and stepping up to women's football, it is competitive. It is, like, say, the physicality of it. We think obviously just getting the opportunities as well, because there's, like, in third division now, there's lots of very experienced girls, say, in their mid-20s who've played, in the academies and, trying to break through it. Some of them are very young, say, under 20s, trying to come into it. It's tough. So, I do think maybe, like, say, adding in things like under 18s or, giving more girls, say, opportunities to come on loan and play with some women's teams, because obviously at the moment we've got Kiara Keaton in goal for us. Coming from, obviously she's at City, but it's great for her to come and play women's football, and it's great for us. And also for her learning as well. So, potentially that's something that some of these academy teams could look to do, which I think would strengthen a lot of the players.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a bit, don't we, John, about sort of either loan deals or the dual loans and how sort of beneficial, because like you say, obviously you're not going to get that experience in the devs. I mean, that's no sort of disrespect to that, but like you say, just the physicality and the technicality of like tier 3 or even tier 4 and 5, like you say, if you're getting out there as a player, we say this a lot with our devs. Maria Edwards, she's scored in like 3-4 goals a game and assisting, and you're just thinking, she's been at Blackburn last year, is it doing her any good sort of being down at that level? And again, I don't mean that disrespectfully. And Kana Solskjaer as well, she's on like 15 goals in 15 games. You just think if these players had a loan and got used to the physicality, then that would probably, probably aid their development a little bit more than, say, just staying in the development every year.
Yeah, definitely. I think hopefully if players, say, did come on loan to, either teams in the Championship or even at our level to play, hopefully it'd sort of make the transition for them into the first team a little bit easier, because like you say, I imagine the step up from playing at devs, say, at some of these academies now to into the first team, it's massive, isn't it? Massive jump for some players. So I think that's something that could be utilised, definitely.
And also about something that we never really mentioned, but we always talk about the step up between the devs and the senior teams, but it's also about playing in front of fans as well, instead of just playing in front of like parents. All of a sudden you've got like a few hundred fans watching you and potentially cheering, and maybe not doing in some cases, but like you hear sighs if you like mess up or kick the ball out or miss the ball or something. You hear sighs. All of a sudden, it is a step up for a number of reasons, isn't it?
Yeah, I can imagine, like, psychologically that must be, like you say, tough, mustn't it, to kind of I think obviously some players can kind of like block it out, can't they, and just sort of crack on, but for other people that could be quite crippling, really. So little things like that. It's quite a big step, like you say, from playing in front of parents to then just like fans and stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully, like you say, if they loaned out to say maybe some other teams where there's slightly more people coming to watch who they don't know, that could definitely benefit some of the players.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that side, John, actually, because I mean, I hadn't thought into that too much, but I suppose as well, it sort of links into growing as a person, doesn't it? You know, I think of some of our players. Obviously, Tara Bourne went to Sheffield. Now, obviously, we don't know if she lived there, but sometimes with a loan, you maybe have to, you know, move away from home. I think of Lara Miller that went from our development team down to Lewis on her own. Obviously, she's just come back north now, but things like that, until you sort of get out of that like development bubble, so to speak, or that environment, you probably learn a lot more once you leave, sort of as a person and a player anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, that's a big move, that, isn't it? Moving from the north down there. Yeah. So yeah, definitely. I think as a player and as a person, yeah, I think it definitely benefits some of the players doing more of that.
Yeah, I think this links in nicely then. I want to touch on obviously your experience out in Germany, sort of like, you know, what you learn, maybe recommending it to others, how you found it, things like that.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. So I moved over there, it was for work. So I had the opportunity to move to Germany for work, and I was just really lucky that the local team was FC Nuremberg, who were playing in the 3rd division. So it was kind of, you know, perfect. So I just messaged them and said, could I come and train? Obviously couldn't speak any German. But yeah, I just went along there and went and joined in, and yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, it's probably one of the best things that I've ever done. I was so glad that I did it, and just really sort of fell in love with football again when I was over there. So like I say, we trained 3 times a week, which is great. We did way more things like the video analysis before every training session. So like the coaches over there were sort of really technical and tactical. So we did so much of that. And yeah, for me personally, in the formation as well. So I've always played as a right back, you know, just in a back 4, but there they played with a back 3 with wing backs. So I got to experience playing that. And yeah, he's like Pep Guardiola. He's having us all, you know, certain shouts. It would be the wing backs would come into the midfield. So I kind of had to learn, you know, doing something completely different that I've never been asked to do before. But no, it's amazing. I feel like I learned so much and learned like a little bit of football German. But yeah, it's amazing kind of what you can, you know, even if you don't speak the language, kind of can still join in and kind of understand what's going on. But I'd 100% recommend it to anyone who gets the opportunity to play abroad. Like you said, I think growing as a person, moving away, and just experiencing playing football in a different country with different culture. Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I absolutely loved it.
Sorry, Matt, just on that. I mean, you joked a little bit about the language barrier, but basically, I mean, how difficult was it? You know, if you have got that like 2-hour training session, I mean, it must be hard when you don't really know many words whatsoever. And also, was you like the only English kind of player? Was it like natural for teams at that level to get foreign players, or?
I think I was pretty much the only English player in that league at the time. But like I say, the Germans, their English is so good. They'll say it's not good, but they're absolutely like fantastic. And I don't know if either of you have tried to speak German, but it's so difficult. I think unless you've learned it properly from like a young age, I
took it to GCSE and I'm still shocked how I passed it.
It's amazing.
I don't know how.
It's the pronunciation I couldn't do. I'd try, but yeah, it's difficult. But yeah, it was fine because obviously the girls could speak good English. So if there's anything that I didn't understand, or lots of them, they enjoyed sort of practicing their English because lots of them were still sort of studying in college and school. So they kind of took it as an opportunity to practice. And yeah, the coach, if he sort of had anything really specific, you know, tactically that he wanted me to do, he'd sort of say it in English. But for most of the analysis, I was watching it, listening to it in German, and kind of, it's funny, sort of like say what you can kind of understand. There's certain words, and you're like, okay, I get it. And yeah, I was quite impressed. It wasn't too difficult, to be fair. So no, it's really good. And maybe it's quite good that you don't understand what people are saying sometimes. If you're shouting on the sideline, I can't understand.
Yeah. I suppose that links in for fans as well, doesn't it? You just think the shout, you think, it's fine, it's all good. Even if it's not going well, it's like, we'll block that out.
It's like, I did get one little bit of fan abuse. So I remember we were playing in the cup, and we travelled, and there's quite a few people there, and I won't repeat what he said. But my German was very limited, but I could understand what he said, and it was quite funny because I just sort of turned around and laughed. But yeah, something I picked up on a bit.
They're the sorts of fans, though, when you score or you win, that you go back to and just wind them up a little bit.
Exactly. Well, yeah. They're normally giving you stick because you're having an all right game, aren't they? So
usually, yeah. Unless it's going badly wrong for their team in general, and then I think everybody gets stick. That's something we get. We get a lot, don't we, John? At sort of women's games, just like players just love winding the fans up. I think just because of sort of how vocal we are and what we do. It's sort of. You do get a lot, but how did you find it? Oh, sorry, John. I'll let you jump in.
I think it might be the same question. It's like, well, no, it might be a slightly different question then. But yeah, just on that, Matt. I mean, how would you feel, Hannah? Because there's a lot of things that have changed over the past 3 or 4 years, with fans being more vocal, singing, chanting, booing. If you was on the receiving end of that, if you was playing like Burnley, for example, and it's a derby and you've got Burnley fans there booing you, I mean, would you take offence to that? Would you call that abuse, or would you just think that's passion in the game and it's nothing personal? It's just the fact that you're wearing a Fylde shirt and these are Burnley fans?
Yeah, I think for me personally, like, I wouldn't take anything like that too much to heart. Like you say, I think it's quite good when players can have like a little bit of banter with people who are there. Obviously, as long as it's not sort of overstepping the mark in terms of what they're saying, but I think it's good to have a little bit of atmosphere, a bit of, like say, a bit of friendly banter. But obviously, I don't know, I can't speak for everyone. Some people might find that quite off-putting, but for me personally, it wouldn't be something that would bother me too much. I'd quite enjoy it, I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna that wasn't quite my question, John. Mine was a little bit different. I was gonna say how obviously the league in Germany. I mean, the German league's probably my favourite to watch outside of sort of the English league. But how did you find it then? I mean, if we're sort of maybe comparing to England in terms of that, I mean, would you say it's like maybe more technical and tactical, or obviously you talked before, didn't you, about sort of playing a different formation and style? But what was the experience like sort of within the football environment then?
Yeah, I'd say it was very technical. As you can imagine, because I remember when they joined and the coach was like, I think he's quite impressed. He's like, wow, you're quite technical for an English player. So obviously, I think we didn't have maybe a great reputation, but I think obviously with the academies now, that's definitely improved in England. But like I say, all the teams sort of throughout the division, like they try and play from the back, very good on the ball. But what I would say is I think in England, it's definitely shifted more towards that as well. I think it's something that we've definitely improved on over the last few years. But yeah, that was the sort of biggest thing I took from it. And yeah, I'd say there were lots of very young players in that league as well. So yeah, and I think what's quite interesting is obviously at Nuremberg, lots of the girls played for the college there. But loads of them were coming from all over Germany, to sort of study there because they could play. So I think there was way more of that going on as well over there. So there were girls coming from all over Germany to play for certain teams and getting their education at the same time, which was brilliant as well.
And I think at some point we have to get you back on and a separate show and just talk about tactics and like formations and now it's like positioning on the pitch and stuff. It's something that we're getting heavily involved with as Man United fans now, because we saw 3 years under Casey Stoney where we played a certain way, and now Mark Skinner's come in and playing his way. I think someone coined the phrase Skinner ball, and it's a lot more people now talk about tactics. Some understand it, some are still learning it. Some like it, some disagree with it. So yeah, maybe one day we can have a little bit more detailed chat about that. But we'll talk a little bit about Blackburn then. So roughly, like what time of when would that have been then in your career? What age group roughly would you have been when you moved back to England?
Oh, so when I came back from Germany, do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I came back from Germany, and then I went to join Fylde from Germany.
Fylde first.
Yeah. So I came back and kind of I knew Conrad was the coach at the time at Fylde, and I'd played with him at Manchester City. So I kind of thought I'll get in touch. So yeah, from there I just went and trained with the girls. So it's kind of around 2020 that I came back. Around Feb time, so literally I was training. I was sort of ready to sign on, ready for the first weekend in a couple of weeks in, and then it was coronavirus. So yeah, that was kind of it. So I couldn't get playing for a little bit, but obviously joined the team, and then we had the news that they obviously were going to disband the women's team, which obviously lots of the girls just couldn't believe. But Kim and Dan, our managers, did some amazing work with the club to obviously get the team back together and keep us in the third division. And all the girls wanted to stay. which is incredible. So yeah, luckily we managed to get the team back together and get playing. But yeah, obviously it's quite frustrating because we started the one season, it got paused again, which is quite frustrating. So this is our first season, hopefully, where we can complete it to the fullest since I've come back from Germany. So yeah.
John, did you want to go on to Blackburn as well? Because I just want to, I want to get onto that league thing, because like I said, I started off watching Blackburn around 2014-15, just through uni basically. And the one thing that used to bug me was there's so many years where they clean up on trophies, they constantly win the league. I think they won the league like 3 years on the bounce. They won trebles and all sorts, and then lost in the playoff final. And it was something that when I was new to it, I didn't understand why. Like, it really wound me up, because I'm thinking, well, these players have won everything you can do. They've won the league, but they've been denied promotion because they've not beat a team that's won the league from another division. It's hard to explain. What did you sort of make of that then when you were at Blackburn, and sort of that experience there? Because like you say, must be frustrating in general, not even if you're playing at Blackburn, but like as players, looking at that for improving the game. Surely it makes sense to send both league winners up.
Exactly, because obviously, like you say, you put in so much hard work all season, and you can go unbeaten, and then it all goes down to one game. And I think obviously we won that league. We had this one game, and the neutral ground to play against Tottenham was Charlton, which is bizarre. So we had to travel all the way down, to go and play this game, which is obviously, I think it adds a little bit more pressure, because obviously it's something totally different to what you used to doing the night before, like a game that you'd normally do. I think there was a lot of pressure on it, like way more pressure than any other game. So I think psychologically it was tough. And then to go on, and obviously we lost that final. And like I say, it's so frustrating. You think surely it makes sense for the winner of each to go up and have two come down. But obviously that's the way they're doing it at the moment. But I think it's not great, because like you say, Blackburn then got stuck for, I think it was like 2 or 3 seasons, won it, but just couldn't move up. And they obviously had the talent and the squad when we were ready to move up, and the club had the backing, to put them in the championship. So obviously it's not great for the growth, because I imagine if a team doesn't go up for the North, then it's tough, isn't it? It doesn't open up the league to many other teams as well.
We can
nice one to change.
We can touch on that a bit more, Matt, shortly. Just whilst we get Blackburn out the way, obviously Ella Toon. Just talk to us a little bit about that then. Just like playing with them, and how she's grown into like one of the top lionesses now. But like, what were your memories of Ella when you first started to play with her?
Yeah, because I remember, because obviously when I was at Manchester City, she'd come there for a little bit. She'd come to do some training sessions. So obviously they'd had her on the radar for quite a while. So I know she started at United as well, didn't she? But yeah, obviously she came to us, and I can't remember how old. She was obviously quite young, but she was scoring goals in big games, playing every week. So you could tell she was a fantastic player. But to see where she's kind of gone on to now is it's incredible. She's obviously worked so hard to get there, and is so driven. So no, it's brilliant to see, and it's great that obviously she played with us in that 3rd division, and it just shows that I think the experience that you can get from playing women's football, at a young age, from there really can hopefully really help other players, and they can follow in the same path as her. But brilliant to see, and hopefully see her playing for England this summer. Be amazing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because on that, and I'm thinking back to that Blackburn team. Obviously, like you mentioned, Teyonah sort of did the dual loan basically. She obviously left Blackburn to go to Man City, and then ended up halfway through the season back at Blackburn. I think that's probably done her the world of good. It's exactly what we were sort of discussing before, and I think at the time as well, Tasha Flint was there for a few years, and I think the pair of them, it just became a competition who could get the most goals. And I seem to remember that there was a good few seasons where Teyonah was hitting 20 with ease, 20, 30 goals. Tasha as well. And it just goes to show, obviously we're talking about talent before. There's so much talent outside the top 2 leagues. And it's good to see, because, when you're coming in, if you're somebody new to it, I know I keep saying to you, John, experience it lower down. And obviously you watch Man United and then you watch lower down. It's good for fans, isn't it? Because you can go and you can, like we talked on before, you can still see these top quality players, and you can see some really good goals. I think back to, Teyonah's ones at Blackburn, and how many she just hit from outside the box, and she made it look so easy. But it was crazy, sort of on that just in general, really, that sort of league and that development and what that dual loan's probably done for her through just getting out there and playing is obviously done the world of good. I want to sort of go on to Fylde then in this season. Obviously, just in general, obviously you talked on Danielle Young and Kim coming in. Obviously, they both played, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then made the transition to management. How have you found it then under them? Because obviously, I can imagine a player to sort of management, like transition, isn't easy. But you look at it now, and you've lost 2 this season. You're absolutely flying. But how has it been sort of under them? Like I say, obviously because they've changed sort of their role now.
Yeah, exactly. I think they've both done an amazing job, like you say, going from playing to then managing. Obviously, it's tough because obviously your relationship with the players changes and everything. But obviously, like they took over when it disbanded in 2020, and since then, I think they've just really grown into the roles. And obviously, the girls have so much respect for both of them and everything they're doing. And yeah, no, they're doing an amazing job, and it's great playing for them, learning a lot.
Such a strong. Sorry, yeah, just on Fylde, but also the league that you're playing in. You know, it is really strong, and the southern equivalent as well. You know, with Ipswich and Southampton. Matt mentioned the potential argument of having like a complete national league. You know, of just like, well, I originally heard it off Stu Barker from Sin 71. He's the one that voice noted me when he was talking about, okay, so what should be next in women's football when it comes to the tier situation. And he was saying, so I'm like one more tier of the whole country as opposed to just divide it into 2. I mean, you are playing in such a competitive league, and to say you could come top of that league at the end of the season, you should be really proud, but still not getting promoted. The frustration there must be, you know, it's uncalled for, really, isn't it? You know, you shouldn't have to go through a playoff after winning such a competitive league.
Exactly. Yeah, like you say, it's to go down to 1 game after, because obviously to win the league, it shows consistency throughout the year. And then, you know, for whatever reason, on one day, something might not click. You might have, you know, for whatever reason, certain players not available. And yeah, it's just sort of heartbreaking, isn't it, to see all your hard work go to nothing.
Yeah.
And obviously, as well, it's quite tough because you've also got all these teams, they could do great, but, you know, if they've not got the financial backing from the clubs as well to obviously apply for the Super League as well. There could be a team who wins it, but you know they've not got the backing to go on the next step. So yeah, there's obviously quite a few barriers in place in some areas, but yeah, it would be great, like you say, for the winner of the North and South both to go up. Because I think, like you say, it's a great achievement to win the league, and it should be rewarded with the move up if they're able to do so.
Yeah, I watched Wolves, as you know, last week against Albion, and Wolves were like a level higher, and West Brom wasn't and isn't a bad team at all, but you can see like a difference between them. And me and Matt watched like a lot of Championship football this season, and Wolves could definitely hold their own up, you know, against some of those teams. And you managed to hold your own against Wolves on the weekend, and maybe we can talk a bit about that game as well. But yeah, it's great to see that if you could get into that division, you know, it's not necessarily going to be obviously it'll be awkward, but it's not like, I don't think the gap is overly massive. There are some clubs that I would love to see compete, but unfortunately, it's just going to be the one club and not the 2.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like you say, I think the quality in our league is obviously it's growing. I think there's lots of players who've kind of have played at that level above who are now playing in this division. So it's getting stronger. And like you say, I think when you go up to the Championship, obviously you're training more, probably the kind of fitness levels, you know, the strength and conditioning. Maybe I think that could be sort of, you know, there's difference between some of the teams. But yeah, I think there's lots of girls who would be capable of making that step up and obviously competing in the league above. And yeah, it'd just be nice for more teams to obviously have the opportunity to do that and not sort of be held back by the restrictions that we've currently got on, you know, the system with the playoff.
Yeah, I think it's something we touch on a lot, isn't it, John? And I know I've said before, you know, if there has to be a playoff, then there should be 2 teams from each league coming up. You know, if you're keeping your North and South playoff, then let's have first and second, first v first and second v second, and do it that way and really sort of expand the Championship. Because I look at the, you know, the 3rd tier now, and I think anywhere from sort of the top to 6th. I mean, looking at the table, you know, you've sort of got Derby at the top, a point above yourselves. You know, Wolves have got games in hand behind. You've got Burnley, Forest and Huddersfield. And it's really, it's very, very competitive. I don't know what you think, Hannah, but I think for me, I'd probably say that's the most competitive I've certainly known. But just want to talk to me about that, and obviously, how it's going this year with Fylde.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the most competitive I've ever seen this league. I think, like you mentioned, there's been shock results, and there's teams that are on their day that are capable of taking points off anyone. So obviously, yeah, we know now that every game counts. We've got to try and win every single game we can if we want to stand any chance of, winning the league and having that possibility of being in the playoffs. But yeah, there's some really, really good teams in the league this year, which is great. Because normally by this point of the year, there's sort of a team that have already started to pull away. Sort of like a clear team who you think, oh yeah, they need to step up. But obviously, there's about 3 or 4 teams in our league who are probably all capable of, if they had the opportunity, going up into the division above. And I think there's quite a lot of teams who've obviously applied, because you have to put in your applications early, to sort of be considered to go into the league above. And yeah, maybe it would be a great thing if they could look to expand that league a little bit, and so it's not just such an exclusive, only one team's come up, when there's obviously lots of girls who are capable of playing and lots of clubs who are willing to sort of invest and back the players. So no, it's great to see it so competitive. Obviously, we've played Wolves twice now and drawn twice. I think we're a little bit disappointed at the weekend that we didn't take all 3 points, which I think says a lot about sort of what we expect from ourselves and where we see ourselves. So, but like I say, we just know every game counts now, and we've got some big games to play at home. So yeah, it's kind of one of those, just constantly looking at the league every week. So like you say, you've got Wolves with games in hand, and it could just change constantly, couldn't it? So it's really exciting, really exciting.
Was that like your Matt? Was that like your expectation as a club, as a team, going into the season, that you'd be like challenging for that top spot? Obviously, you'd like to get promoted, and I'm sure that was obviously on your mind. But when you see teams like Wolves there and the Derby counties, with Fylde's history, did you kind of think, oh yeah, we should be competing with those, or do you kind of see that you're overachieving this season? What were your thoughts going into the season?
I think so. Obviously, at the start of the season, like, we sat down as a team and set out our clear goals, and we were all unanimous in that we wanted to win the league. Obviously, we've got a really good squad of girls. Like I say, some who've played, lots of them have played for academies from WSL teams that have all sort of come together. We've got players like Faye McCoy, who she was at Blackburn, obviously, when we won the league all those years ago. So, we've got some really good experience in our team. So, yeah, I'd say we expected ourselves to be challenging. So, yeah, we put high expectations on ourselves. So hopefully in the second half of the season, we can carry on and hopefully go ahead and do it. But like I say, there's some big and tough games. And yeah, lots of other teams who have obviously got the same ambitions. So it's great, though. It's great for the league.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to add, John, was it's funny because I remember a conversation at the start of the season with Gareth, and we're sort of saying, based on teams we'd seen, this team will win the league, that team will win the league. And I think it's got to like February now, and I think we've just sacked it off because we don't have a clue. And this is what's great. We said, oh no, these are looking good, And I think we'd started off. We watched quite a few Forest games, and they won like 5 or 6 on the bounce, and they were flying. And we're like, right, Forest are going to win. And I know teams don't win it early, but just you sort of get this picture. And then we watched Derby County, and we were like, actually, Derby are flying. And then it changes, and then like obviously Wolves win all the game in hands, and then they've got more games in hand. It's like, well, actually, maybe Wolves will. And then obviously you throw in Fylde, and obviously we spoke as well about Burnley sort of before the show and saying, Burnley are putting quite a run together. I just think it's brilliant. Like, when we talk about competitive nature, and it's exactly what you want. You just want now the league or the powers that be, whatever we want to sort of refer to them as, to sort of just level it up now, like we mentioned before. But I want to sort of discuss how you feel it's going personally then, Hannah, obviously for yourself this season, and then we'll go back a little bit to that sort of north-south combined league perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally this season, obviously I'm really enjoying it. I'm feeling that I'm keeping myself fit, touch wood, like obviously I remain fit, but yeah, played a lot of games, which is always great, isn't it? But I'd say in every single position, we've got such a strong squad. So you've literally, you've got to perform every single game. So there's that sort of added pressure because there's someone there ready to take your spot. So no, for me, I'm obviously happy with my performances so far, and hopefully I can continue. But yeah, that comes from, I think, all the girls pushing each other. and just having competition within the squad, which is brilliant. So, yeah, really enjoying it. Really enjoying my football.
You spoke about like the stuff that you learnt in Germany. Is there anything that you kind of brought back with you that you feel how like that you wanted to be able to do before you went to Germany, that now that you are back from Germany, that you've kind of brought to your game in regards to either tactics or even just as a person, like not letting things maybe get on top of you, or learning to deal with like setbacks along the way, just anything like that at all?
Yeah, so I say obviously different tactics. So there have been times sort of in the season where we may have, switched to a back three for whatever reason, just to try it out. And obviously I know I can play as a wing back, but then also when I was in Germany, I had to fill in at left back quite a lot. So obviously I got to, get used to playing on the wrong side and stuff like that. So for the last couple of games, I've kind of had to, with injuries, I've had to fill in on the left side. So kind of been able to adapt. That's something that I've definitely learned over there. And I'd say that's sort of the main thing. And then obviously the coaches over there, because we train more often, so we got more contact time. He was very sort of tactical in terms of specific players. So you kind of felt, like each game someone had a role to play, and we'd work on specific patterns of play. So something that he sort of recognised that I could do is I could, crossing the ball. So literally it's something that he just had us doing constantly crossing the ball. So
okay.
Obviously, that's something that I worked on over there that hopefully, I've brought into my game here. And that just comes from, like I say, him spotting it as a coach and just practicing it every single training session. And like you say, I think just as a life experience as well. Obviously I went over to Germany when I think I was like 23, and I'm nearly 28 now. So I think it just helped me grow as a person, obviously moving away from home, just having to be that little bit more independent and stuff like that. So I'd say I'm a lot more calm now as well. I think I've just matured quite a lot.
Well, what about your teammates? Like, what's the chemistry like there? Like, because obviously you might only see each other twice a week, and obviously on game day as well. Is that chemistry there? Do you have a bit of fun and banter with any of your teammates?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we've got some jokers in the squad. They're just a fantastic bunch of girls. Like I say, there's quite a lot of people who say, we've played together at other teams, or we've played against each other at different levels or whatever throughout kind of our careers. So great bunch of girls. I think we've got a really good mix of kind of sort of players at kind of that right age and their peak, some who are a little bit more experienced and some younger as well. So I think we've just got a really good blend to the squad and some really good personalities in there. So good bunch of girls.
It's good to hear, and I'm going to say this because I can say this, but we've spoken to sort of players in the past, and some of them have said at their sides there might be little groups, and I think sometimes I've worked in sort of football at sort of academy level in the men's game. I just think that's not always the best way. So it's nice hearing that like you say, everybody's together. Because like I say, we speak to some people and say, well, there's a group here and there's a group there and there's a group there, and sometimes you worry. Whereas I think that probably helps you lot because you're absolutely flying and everybody's, like you say, together, and you can have a laugh and a joke. But when it's time to be serious, you're all together with the same sort of vision and dream.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you say, because obviously there's so much commitment. Obviously, lots of us are having to drive there, spending, twice a week, and then obviously on a Sunday. We see some of the girls more than we probably see our families. So, I think it's obviously important to have that really good chemistry and just for everyone to get on. And just feel really lucky that obviously we've got a really good bunch of good group of girls, good players, and good people.
Yeah. Sort of coming towards the end of the show, then there's a couple of bits left that I want to sort of mention. Obviously, we talked about a North-South league before, and John mentioned the possibility of it. Perhaps could it be combined? Where do you sort of sit on that? Do you think that would work? I'm mainly thinking in terms of finances, because obviously it's difficult without a backing of a men's side. Do you think that would maybe work if the league were to turn around and say, right, we will combine North and South and 2 or 3 teams would go up? Or do you think maybe that might be sort of taking a step backwards, perhaps?
It's an interesting, because obviously having that increased travel, that means obviously sometimes having to go on a Saturday night, say, and paying for hotels and stuff like that. So I imagine financially, that would be quite a burden on some of the clubs, like I say, if they've maybe not got the backing or the budget to do that. And then I just think sort of on a personal level as well, obviously work Monday to Friday, train twice a week. We've got our Sundays at football. If you then throw in quite a few weeks of the year when you're going to have to travel on a Saturday, that's, for lots of girls who've got families or other commitments, obviously it'd be quite a strain. But obviously, I think if more financial backing comes into the league, though, to sort of help out with things like that, and maybe people don't have to have, the work commitments like they do, then potentially I think that could be good. But obviously, we've got things like the FA Cup where we could potentially play against teams in the other divisions, and we've got the League Cup as well. So, at the moment we've got that. But yeah, I think probably financially that would be probably the biggest constraint on it.
Yeah.
But it could be interesting. Like I said, I think if the game continues to grow,
Yeah.
There's definitely potential for that.
If we have a look at how strong the Championship has got over the last 4 years, well, 3 or 4 years since United was in it, that Championship has grown and more money's got into it, and better players have got into it who may have been relegated from the league above or coming from abroad. I think the Championship has got stronger very quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think the national leagues are a million miles away. I think they're a million miles away at the moment, but I don't think it's a million miles away where things will get fed down. I think you might look at about 2 or 3 years where the whole of the Championship is going to be full time, and then the next lot down will be the leagues that you're playing in. So the next step, instead of making the 2 leagues that 1 tier full time, it might just be a case of, okay, is this the time now to restructure the leagues, have maybe 16 teams in the WSL, 16 in the Championship, and then in the 3rd tier, instead of having 2 lots of 12 or whatever it is at the moment, 1 lot of 16. And that could be, I'm not saying it's going to happen right away, but potentially that could be the next step to help that level grow.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you say as well, it all starts to trickle down, doesn't it? Obviously, if the top leagues get stronger, then you get more stronger players you start to filter down the levels. So I think definitely that. And obviously with commitment, obviously some people have to choose between career and football. So you end up getting some very good players who maybe can't commit, to full time, who then end up in the leagues below, which again, it's great, isn't it, to have quality players in some of these lower leagues to kind of up the competitiveness. So I think hopefully it'd be great if it does grow, because it's only good for the women's game. So it'd be interesting to see. I think I'll probably be long retired by then.
I don't know, it might not be.
Maybe. I might be coming to watch, so that'd be fantastic though.
There you go. There's a thought there, John. If we're recruiting members to come and sing some songs at Man United in a few years' time, John can give you a shout. We're always on the lookout, aren't we, John, for recruits? So
100%, yeah.
There we go. I'd love to come watch more United women's game, but obviously clashes with my own football and going to watch the men's team. So hopefully at some point I can come down and come and support the girls. Maybe you can teach me a few songs.
I mean, we'll try. You don't want to hear our singing voices, especially with John's accent. Sorry, John, I had to get that one in there. You know, I love winding you up and joking.
I wind up myself with my accent.
It's just sometimes I sit there with a blank expression thinking, what has he just said? And people look at me as if I'm like an idiot. But anyway, so I just want to get one final point. I know we've sort of touched on views and thoughts about sort of improving the game, but is there anything else, Hannah, that you maybe like to see sort of in the next few years in the game in general? I mean, a lot of people talk about sort of, goal line technology, better referees, but is there anything we've not discussed that maybe you think, actually, do you know what, that could work, or that could be great to see, if possible, sort of financially as well, obviously, in the game?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you've already sort of touched on it, things like you say, goal line technology and improvement of officials. Obviously, if we're wanting the women's game to improve, then I think that also needs to naturally come with it as well. Things like that, obviously improve facilities and better accessibility of games. Like you're saying, people are now able to watch. There's obviously really good highlight programs and real deep dives into the tactical analysis of women's games, which is great. But I think, like we say, just continue sort of the investment in coaching at younger level, at younger age groups. Because I think obviously if you invest it there and kids are getting coached, high-level coaching at a young age, it's only going to then in the future filter through. I think you can already see it with goalkeepers already. Like some of the young goalkeepers that are coming through now are phenomenal, but that's because they've obviously had the coaching from when they were little. Obviously, like when I first started, there were no goalkeeper coaches and you just used to stick them in net and blast the ball at them. But yeah, I think that's what's going to help the game progress is obviously a bit more investment and, you know, funding going into the coaching at younger age groups.
Just one last one from me, and it kind of links in. You know, we try and raise awareness on this channel and on our Twitter about women's football and trying to get to as many games as we can. And we do that when we can't get to Man United, we go to another game, you know, usually a local game, or maybe to watch some of our former players. Just like, what would you kind of say to anyone who's thinking about coming to a game, or how could we like start growing attendances maybe in the national leagues that's maybe less publicised or in your face, so to speak?
Yeah, I think obviously it's quite tough because obviously the men's game, like there's just fixtures constantly. It's always on television, isn't it? The women's game's really competing against that. So yeah, I think it's like I say, just trying to get as many people as we can. You know, say maybe obviously we're getting lots of school kids who are coming to watch us, you know, who maybe don't have the opportunities to go and watch, say, the men's football. But yeah, I think like I say, just through social media, getting people there, but yeah, just trying to get people to come and watch. And I think men's teams as well, you know, doing a little bit more to promote their women's teams. And, you know, maybe it could be certain times of the year, you know, when you say you have tickets to go and watch a men's game, you can watch the women's game for, you know, have them both. Obviously see it in other sports like in cricket and stuff like that, you know, you can get 2 games in one day. You know, whether that sort of gets people who maybe necessarily wouldn't watch a women's game to then, you know, to and become invested in it. Maybe that's the way to go. But yeah, I think just keep banging the drum, and I think getting some of the younger generation sort of more engaged with it, and hopefully that'll naturally start to bring more people to come and watch.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like you say, you know, the more we can get sort of advertising and marketing out there, the better. And I think what's great as well is that there's quite a lot of clubs now using sort of social media like Facebook and YouTube to sort of, you know, promote their teams. And it's great because that in essence is, you know, it's sort of free, isn't it? You don't need to pay. So there's no outgoings. You just need somebody that's, you know, comfortable using the technology, and then obviously a camera or something where they can sort of show the game, really.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think it's our Burnley game. I think it's on TikTok. So from the other night, obviously, I feel like I'm too old now to not on TikTok. But yeah, obviously, lots of the kids who are using stuff like that. So, like you say, it's just sort of innovation, isn't it, with technology, and like say having highlights, you know, so people can sort of watch them on Twitter, and they might watch and think, oh, actually, it looks a good standard. I'll go and watch it. Because I think obviously people have a bit of a perception on women's football. So yeah, the more that we can do to change it and sort of get it out there, then the better, and hopefully we can get more people coming to watch at all levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Come to the end of the show, so I want to thank you very much, Hannah, for joining us. It's been really good show and a really good insight.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's great.
Yeah, and John as well, thank you to you. Like I said before, it's been a while on a Tuesday, but we've managed to get you on, so
yeah.
Thank
you for getting me on, and it's great to finally chat to Hannah. I know that I followed you, I think, because you was a United fan, and then obviously I got to know a bit more about you as a person as opposed to a United fan. And I wish you all the best for the rest of the season as well. I think it's such a great league, something that I'll keep my eye on now. Every Sunday I check all the leagues, and that's the one that it's always in my mind. So yeah, great to see.
Oh, brilliant. Hopefully see you at one of our games then before the end of the season.
I was going to say, John, come on.
I've got a list now to go through,
Your list. Get your list. Just get yourself up in the car. What do you mean? A list. Shocking. Yeah, absolutely. We are back this week. John, you'll have your Thursday show. So tune into that and obviously refer to the schedule for the rest of the week. Thank you.